Okay, we're streaming, we're recording, we got everything going.
Yep. Wow, this is amazing. Now, if we can only remember where we left off.
Oh, I went over everything, and so I kind of think I've got a good starting, a launch for us and stuff, so. Because I watched all 5 that we've done so far.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff. Really cool. So I think what we want to kind of concentrate on is kind of your and mom's family, us guys.
Yeah.
And kind of like you said, I invited all the siblings to come, so you never know. Someone could jump on Facebook and I might get feedback or something from somebody else. But yeah, just telling the stories right now. Good, and I've got the feedback. So if someone shares a comment, I can.
Yeah. Well,
I can see
no,
it.
that's not the way it was. It's the comments.
Hang on. There we go. Good. Yeah. So that's what we're kind of to. We're to us guys growing up and any stories about when we were kids and the challenges of raising 6 kids that you've had in 8 years and living on next to nothing. And
Yeah, that's you say it now and you see what people do with their kids, and I'm thinking, gee whiz, it never could have happened. But then again, nobody did what they do nowadays. I mean, even the kids you hang around with, none of them were going to Disney World and things like that. All like every year they go to Disney World. Yeah, well, that just doesn't happening in our day.
yeah, it was a different time. And
Yeah,
I remember, this when we went, I was back when we were back there picking up the house, and you forget, your mind plays game with you, but how small that house on Harkness was.
yeah, that's right. I mean, and that's small, and the one on Sumner was even smaller.
Yeah, I said Harkness. I meant Sumner. I meant the one on Sumner, how small the one on Sumner was.
Yeah,
I mean, that was pretty compact.
yeah, right. Linnea was saying yesterday, she says, it's hard to imagine all those people with only one bathroom.
Right.
Yeah, but it was that way with almost everybody.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Bob Swan about it one day, and he was saying, yeah, because they live down on Underhill or somewhere, and he said, same kind of house, only had one bathroom, 7 people in the house.
Yeah, whether it's there or Harkness, you
Now,
made your call before you went to take a shower.
Yeah, before you now you don't remember back, okay, because when Mom and I were first married, on and off, we lived with her mother.
Right.
And that was mainly to help her mother out. People were thinking that she was helping us out, but it was the other way around. We were usually trying to help her out. But then you don't remember her living on High Street at all, do you?
No, that was before
Now
I
you
can
were
remember
only,
anything.
yeah, no, you were like 2 years old, I guess. Let me see, you moved out of there, and maybe you were a little
Yeah,
older.
I was probably 2 or 3. Well, you had Chris before we moved down there, right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
And so that would have put me, well, I was probably 2
Yeah.
because Chris was a baby, right?
Yeah, Chris was born in 62.
Chris was
We
born in
moved-
62.
Yeah, we moved in 63.
Okay, so
Ready
yeah, so
to
if you
fall.
moved during 63, I was probably 2.
Yeah, so, but anyway, that was just in a kind of an apartment. It was a 2-family house, and we lived next door. But the story then is that one day Jimmy took his little toy lawnmower and walked down the street. He was missing. He went all the way down to, and the funny thing is, he was, we finally, nobody knew where he was. We called the police. So he was what, 3 or 4 years
3 or
old?
4, yeah.
3 probably.
Probably 3.
And and everybody looking for him. And the person down on the corner of Dorina saw him and took him and figured out that somebody'd be looking for him eventually. And the funny story was that was that house was Carrie Katzmartzik's mother. I found out later on lived in that house.
Hmm.
And when she saw, people looking for him, she figured out where he belonged, so they brought him back. And it was probably the one exciting thing when we lived there. And, but most of the time it was just normal. And then we moved to Sumner, and it was an interesting neighborhood because even with the 6 kids, we were nothing.
Yeah, because you had up the street, you had
Had the Glucose, they had 8.
they had
And we
8.
moved in there, the Baldinos.
Baldinos, yep.
Had 8. And then
When did Lester move into Bray? What was the
Lester
timing on
moved
that?
in there. Let me see. He must have moved up too long after we did. He may be 64, 5. See, he was in the service. Got out of service. They were living on Hill Street for a while because I remember helping him move into Hill Street. And then they bought that little house over there. And that's where my father went to live when they bought that house over there with the idea they were going to fix it up, which they did build it up,
Right.
They made extra rooms and everything. So, yeah, I always tell people that, at Hay Avenue, in 1 year, everybody was there. There was a Schulte in every class
Yeah, K Avenue, yeah.
at Hay Avenue, except for 2 classes when there was 2.
Yeah.
Like you and Michael were in the same class.
Yeah,
when
we
I
were
came
both
to
8th
Morgan.
grade. Well, we were both in the same class, right?
Yeah, we were in the same grade.
Yep.
So that was kind of interesting little place the place to play because you play in the swamp.
Yep.
Mom would say, go play in the swamp.
And we did.
Yeah, and the things that, you remember guys who must have been 68, 72, maybe, I don't know, year of the Olympics. You
Yeah.
guys were doing Olympics around the neighborhood. And
Yeah, that's when we made Stephen Kelly run and just about pass out.
yeah, that was what I was thinking. Was it Stephen Kelly? I can't remember.
You know
who it
what? And it was interesting because I think it was 72 because, my mind's eye, I made a connection for something that was a disconnection just recently within the last week or so. Because I think of the Summer Olympics, I think I'm in summer, but 72 is much later. It was in the fall.
was. 72 was.
The 72 Olympic, either that or the 68. One of the two of them were quite
68
late.
No, 68 had to been right because 68 was in Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Then 72 was where?
Ooh,
I have to look that up. I don't know.
I'm gonna Google it right now. But the reason I bring it up is my memory now, again, you don't know what happens when you're a kid, when you're trying to remember things.
Yeah, right.
But I kind of remember raking leaves for the long jump pit. And I thought, well, how could that be if it was in the summer?
Yeah. And when was it possibly in Australia?
Let's take a look. Yeah, see, well, they started on August 26th, but they ended on September 10th, so it might have been. Oh, that's the Munich, because that was the year that they had the athletes kidnapped.
That's right. That was the exciting thing in that way. 72. Could remember that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
But we had, and we might have done it both for all I know. But we had, we made our own ribbons out of construction paper and,
I can remember you doing it. I don't remember all the details. I don't remember. I just remember you guys were doing it. And I guess I would remember, I guess it was probably 48. It was kind of the same thing. We did it in the woods where the rubber tree apartments are now.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it was out in the woods and somebody had made a little, you want to call it a track or something, around some trees there, so you could run around in a circle, I can remember that. And it had to be
well, one thing
48.
I'm learning from
Southern-
doing these conversations with you, and I think we talked about it one time, is the similarities between your childhood and ours was very pretty similar, but the difference between our childhood and our kids is quite a bit different.
Yes, that's right. It is. It was. I mean, you look at going to school was pretty much the same things, the same schedules, same. Some of you even had the same teachers. I remember Mr. Woody had Mr. Nolan. I don't know if you guys had any of the teachers that I had, but I know a couple of old timers that were still around when you kids went to school. And
Well, I
it
mean,
was.
in high school, obviously, we all had Jack Taylor for until the younger guys came along.
That's right. But
Now, correct my misunderstanding on that. Was Jack was he ever your head coach in track?
yeah, what happened is he was a new PE teacher, I think maybe my sophomore or junior year. And I think my senior year, he took over the track program.
Okay.
He was then up until then it was Jim Wynn. But the thing was that he came in, and I think like first year he was there, he was like coaching baseball. I think my junior year.
Uh-huh.
Then my senior year, Ray Stoviak took that over because he knew how to do it. Um, the same as with the program, the football program, when he took over the football program.
Yeah, I remember you
They-
telling me that your senior year you had a new coach and everything.
And it was great.
And he switched. I thought he switched offenses. You mentioned.
Yeah, well, the thing is that uh, Jim Wynn, old timer, he was running single wing,
Single wing. Yeah.
and then nobody was running single wing but him. And then and I was just thinking of it because I don't know if my screw up or what it was, but anyway, of course you get a new coach and you move to I guess you might call it a wing T. I think it'd be you had a
Yeah.
slot back, but you had a T formation basically, and then of course everything was new plays, new formation, everything, and I remember the first game we lost to Bassick. Of course, because there was new coach and we had very few returning players, we were considered going to lose or have a losing season anyway. In the first game, we lost 13-6 or 13-7 maybe. But anyway, what I remember about that game is was a play just before the half that they called, and I thought it was a pass to me. And it was just a simple, we were down by the goal line. It was just a simple, don't do anything, just stand up and catch the ball and go for the goal line. Well, no, it wasn't supposed to be for me. It was supposed to be for little Billy Morris, who was like the slot back. But I don't know, the ball came to me, I caught it, but I didn't make the touchdown. Maybe I called it. Maybe at least what they told, what the coach said to me, it wasn't my play, and it was supposed to go to Billy, who was behind me, but it was all new uh, plays for us. So
Yeah.
anyway, but I remember that. It's funny how you remember the stupid things you did or the things,
Yeah.
how you, oh, remember that. And then, but all I know is in the yearbook, they got my touchdown.
Okay. That's a good thing they grabbed I only had two as well. So,
I only had one and it ended up in the yearbook.
there you go. That's what you mean. That's what you call knowing the editor.
Yeah, right.
So we moved to moved to Sumner. So 63. So, and you have Scott in 64.
Yeah.
And so you just rented it from Mr. Smith to begin with?
Yeah, that's right. We were renting it from Mr. Smith. And then, and I talked about this because then he wanted to sell the house. We were living there and we couldn't buy it, and so what happened is Mrs. Davis gave us the money to put down payment on the house so we could buy it.
Who's that?
Mrs. Davis.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And actually I spoke at her funeral and I told the story because what happened is that he said he was going to sell the house and Mom was sitting out on the front steps and Mrs. Davis came by and said, what's, you look sad, what's up? She said, oh, we're going to have to move because he's going to sell the house and we don't know where we're going to go with all these kids and stuff. And she said, well, why don't you buy it? I said, well, we don't have the money for the down payment. And she said, well, how much do you need? I don't remember. I mean, by today's standards, it's not a lot of money.
Right.
I think $1,500 or something to put down to buy it. So she takes $1,500 and she puts it in a bank account with her and my name on it.
Wow.
So then we go to the bank and we can get a mortgage because they have the $1,500 down payment. And I don't think we, then we pay her a little bit now and then when we sold the house, we paid her off. But when Mrs. at her funeral, I asked if I could speak and I told the story. Eileen Casey sent me Eileen Davis sent me a nice note after about it.
Hmm.
So, but
I
that's
didn't know that. Where did they live now?
Mrs. Davis lived she's the one that had the treehouse in her backyard. She lived on the corner of Bray and Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just right there. In fact, I think they put another house down in back there.
Yeah, they did. They did eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I didn't even know that story.
You didn't know that, but you remember Mrs. Davis?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew
Yeah, and
I knew it was one of those corners, but I couldn't remember which one.
her grandchildren, which were Casey's, would come over and play sometimes, and I
Right.
think he got to know them too. So, but that was the story behind that.
Huh.
But it was, you realize now it was as poor as we were, it was a great neighborhood to bring kids up.
Right.
You can, and that's the thing is saying about me growing up and you kids growing up. You went wherever you went whenever you wanted.
Yep.
There was no restrictions, no worries about, you're going to get kidnapped or anything, or somebody was going to beat you up or something. Yeah. Chris always talks about, well, Saturday afternoon, he's walking through the woods over like A Avenue with $150 in his pocket because of collections,
Yep.
And, but it was good because it was one of those times when you could still go play, like they always say, you get up in the morning, you go out and play, and you come home at night when the street lights came on or something like that.
Yeah.
Kids will talk about it, because because everybody watched out for everybody else. Everybody knew everybody. You didn't have a lot of turnover in the neighborhood.
Right.
People were pretty much there. When Paul Skull moved in, that was a big thing.
Of course, there's so many great stories associated with the farmer, though.
Oh, yeah. The farmer, which, when the ball would go into his yard, and I would have to go in and get it.
It was a strategic operation to decide who was going to go get the wiffle ball out of the farmer's yard.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the thing is, you don't realize it. You didn't realize it then, but you do now. He was Alzheimer's.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Times he was found him on our front porch one night, trying to get in the house because he thought it was his house.
Yeah. The one time he thought did he work? Was he in the railroad industry? Because one time I think he was out like in his underwear in the middle of the street, just
waving
or something.
Yeah, waving his handkerchief to stop the train. Yeah.
But yeah, back then you didn't have a working knowledge of things like we do now and awareness.
Yeah, because at that time you didn't know about Alzheimer's like we do now. But it was nice. And then, you had it was funny with the people, you had Cal, you had Mr. T, you had Uncle Doug.
Yeah.
People that, except for what do you call it, the one next to Cal, what were their names?
What were their names? The infamous, we must recall that, the infamous, no, we'll scrub the street story by Dot.
It looks like Hogan's Alley.
It looks like Hooligan's Alley. So recall that one for folks, what you remember, because that's important for folks to understand. That's like vintage Dot.
Yeah, right. You get out there, and she's out there with you. Scrubbing the street, and then they're all upset. What was their names? I can't remember now.
It's so weird. I can't remember their names either. They're right next to Cal, right?
Yeah, right next to Cal.
Just east of Cal, and we're doing our normal kid thing. Chalking up the whole street with stop signs and.
I don't think you were the only kids doing it. I think.
Oh no, probably not.
I think the Mills or,
Because then,
somebody else.
right next to them was old Larry Jetty, so.
Yeah, Larry, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they came out and called it Hoogan's Alley, and Dot put the soapy water together, and we all washed the street. They were mortified.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. We can't remember their names.
Yeah. It's funny, yeah, because you
Because
knew it so
that's a classic
yes.
Dot story.
You think about it now and you think about when you kids, okay, it was school time. The whole school went to school at 9 o'clock, right?
Right. 9 to 3, basically.
9 to 3, whether you were in
Like,
first grade
yeah,
or eighth grade.
yeah, it was clockwork. Yep.
Yeah, everybody, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're lucky if you could walk down the street because there was so many kids
Yeah.
getting out of school at that time. It was
Yeah.
interesting. And of course, just being at A Avenue when you got bit by the dog.
Yeah, I was just telling that story the other night because I was doing we have the new superintendent, so we were doing kind of advisory groups with different groups of employees.
Yeah.
To kind of get feedback for the superintendent on what's working, what's not. And the group we were dealing with, working with on Wednesday night was, classified. So child nutrition, transportation folks, and custodian. And I told the story about Mr. D saving me.
Is that who it was?
Yeah, he came out of the school and was the one that kind of pulled the dog off of me, the custodian, because he was working off the nobody else, hardly anybody else was even in the school.
Yeah, I
He
always
was
thought
there.
it was a custodian that came out, but it was Mr. D himself.
Well, no, it wasn't the custodian, Mr. D.
No, Mr. D was the principal.
So
Maybe,
what was the
maybe
custodian's name then? We
he was
had
the
it.
custodian. Maybe they called him Mr. D too. I don't
I
know.
think so. Yeah, because he was kind of a big Italian guy and stuff, and we were all scared of him because he never said much. He just kind of grunted and groaned at you.
Yeah, that's funny because I it's
Because
cool
so
now.
when did Mr. Hayden become the principal then?
It's a good question. That's what I was just trying to think. When did he become the principal?
Because I mean, he dealt with my um, entertaining behaviors in 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah, so Mr. D, Mr. D, that was the principal, had left already because, because he was the principal when Mr. Hayden was the principal. Well, maybe right from the time when Ann graduated from 8th grade. I'll have to ask her who was the principal when she graduated.
Mhm.
Because he may have been gone by Mr. D. I just remember him because he was there when I came and I had him as a teacher. So
Oh, wow.
and then he was an athletic guy too. He was a sports guy, so it was good to hang around with him. And Mr. Hayden, yeah. So Mr. Hayden must have been. Well, what grade were you in when you had the dog?
I was little. I was only 7 or 8. I think seems like it may have preceded my 2nd grade year with Miss Janetta, which we had, such a interesting experience with. Mommy was a fit for a bear with that woman.
Yeah, right. I know.
But I think I want to say it was the summer before 2nd grade, but it might have been the summer after 2nd grade. But right
I think it was. I think
for
you were
me,
going to be a catcher, so
right.
you were going to play baseball. So you would have had to been 8.
Well, actually, Scooter started at 7. It was a weird thing. And that's why I played Scooter that one year. Now we're getting into the weeds a little bit and not so much about the family, and don't want to get too off on me. But yeah, because junior majors didn't start to 8 years old. So I played 1 year in the Little League on the Indians with Charlie being he was a pitcher and I was a catcher way back when we were both 7.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
And we played on, that field. What's the name of the field? Lou Gehrig Field.
No Gary Gale.
And that was the only year we played Little League, and then we transferred over to junior majors when we were 8.
Yeah, right.
But
'Cause that's
they didn't have junior majors at 7.
yeah, right.
I remember
Yeah.
I was blue, I remember my blue t-shirt. I can remember all that.
Yeah, that's funny because I guess there was so much going on in those years, and I can remember. Did you play when you played in junior majors? Who'd you play for?
Well, we played for in the, when we were younger we all played the Cardinals. I got a picture of Jimmy and I with our Cardinal uniforms. So
Okay, you
with
played for
Mr. Hoffman,
Mr. Hoffman. So
which I always think was one of the best coaches in the world.
yeah, that's right.
You know, we get I remember this as a coach. You'd get bases loaded against us and stuff. He was always so calm, and he'd walk out there every time. He said the same thing. Well, boys, bases are loaded. Just remember, there's a force at every base. Okay, and that was it. Then he'd go sit back down.
Yeah, Christopher was telling me the same thing last night.
Yep.
That Mr. Hoffman, he was telling you that. And so that's been part of his whole thing. He was a good guy. But I didn't
Because we
realize.
had a really, we had some pretty competitive teams, and if you remember in the I want to say, before we got into the majors, and I'm trying to remember who played for the majors, if it was the Braves or, because I can remember, we all can remember playing for Mr. Hoffman. That was just kind of like a rite of passage. And once he took Jimmy, he took all of us, I think. But I'm trying to remember. So I remember so I think, was it the Bush kid and the Dunn kid that both pitched for the Cardinals too, that went on, became really good ball players for Milford or Foreign.
Yeah.
One was a lefty and one was a righty, and they were pretty good pitchers.
Right.
And I think they pitched for him as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It kind of blurs together for me because everybody went through Mr. Hoffman, except
Yeah, because I can remember Babe Ruth, playing for the Steelers, because Charlie was because Charlie and I got back together. He played on that team as well.
Okay.
But I have kind of draw a blank during the majors.
I didn't realize that Charlie was related to Teddy Boynton.
You didn't know that? They're cousins. Oh yeah, first cousins.
Yeah, because then Charlie came to the football game the other day. I'm taking tickets. He said, "Yeah, Teddy can finally do something for me." Yeah. But I had known a couple of years ago, but up until then, I didn't realize it.
Oh yeah,
Teddy and him.
When we were kids, we knew they were cousins and stuff all the way through. Yeah. So, trying to think of the classic,
Well, the classic thing was playing in the street, playing wiffle ball.
Yeah.
You talk about the ball went into the neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
The farmer there. But the times they broke a window in Mr. Reidenbach's.
Oh yeah.
And you're breaking a window with a wiffle ball.
Yeah. I know. And the classic Dot letting us using the flour to line the fields.
Yep, and lights in the tree.
Hanging the lights up in the trees. That was, yeah. I tell folks, I said daytime wasn't game time for us. Daytime was prepare the field time, and then nighttime was game time.
They're the only people that played night games in their yard.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can remember playing a lot of night games, with the Mills.
Yeah.
Up the street. That was always a event, because you had so many of us, like you said, in that neighborhood.
And the thing is, then I have to stop and think. Those years, we had the swimming pool.
I was just going to ask you, how did you get the swimming? Did you get a second-hand pool somewhere? Because
yeah,
on the economy, those things are not cheap.
No, it was a second-hand pool, and I forget where we got it. But mom was great at finding stuff like that. She'd see something in the paper, something for sale, Jungle Gym or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And right away we were going to get it. We didn't have any money to pay for it, but we'd figure it out how to get it. But the year we had 3 pools, then we had the big one, and then we had
Yeah.
the middle one, and then we had a little wading pool for the little
Right.
kid. So
And,
Scott,
you know, and the stupid things that you remember, because I remember that, you know, nowadays those above ground pools kind of have a wide, you
yeah,
know,
oh
but
yeah,
but back in the day, you know, that thing had like an inch, it was about an inch wide. And
that's
being
right.
stupid kids, we try to see how far you could walk on that thing without,
Is that right? I
and you'd
remember.
slip and you hurt, you just kill yourself, and then you'd get up and try it again.
Yeah, I didn't know you tried that.
Yeah.
And as, you know, he had a lot of ingenuity, I guess, on how to use the pool.
Yeah.
Up
Well,
with the,
part of the Olympics incorporated the pools sometimes. We
is
had
that,
swimming races.
is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I was working, so I wasn't home all the time, but I knew this.
If my memory serves me correct, and the other guys can switch, I mean, as simple as little things. And it was interesting, you know, when we were down in Aruba, you know, I guess this comes from being dirt poor, but you know, we'd go into the water. We used to see how far you could go into the water holding your breath. That was always a classic, you
Yeah,
know.
right. Yeah,
But you know, whether it was in the water or down at the beach, you know, I always opened my eyes underwater. Never thought anything about it. And all my kids like, Dad, you open your eyes in the water? How do you? It's like, I don't know. We just always
it's just,
did.
it's just a natural, yeah.
Yeah,
And, well, the thing is that a lot of times if you were down the beach, you're going to come up with a handful of mud or something and throw it at
right.
somebody. That's you know,
Well, I was telling them the other day, because when we went to Aruba, it was just a big joke. You couldn't get the mud out of your pockets and stuff. And I said, "Oh yeah, you should have seen Gramps when we come home from the beach and get that hose and just start down our pants and everything else, and cleaning it off from the sand before we went inside." And the other
yeah,
thing I told them about was the classic mom. Hey mom, can we have a towel? No, drip dry. This is 90% humidity. How are you ever going to dry?
it was 90%. It was 90 degrees heat too, though.
Yeah, she said drip dye. We're like, how's this going to happen? But now that you raise people, like, yeah, who wants to do a whole laundry load of towels from a bunch of kids running around? That's just going to jump in the pool 10 minutes later.
Yeah, right. But it is, yeah, you go down to the beach and you guys would be in the water and it'd be, you'd come home and you'd be, like you say, a pocket full of sand, no matter where you went. Then was mentioned today going to Woodmont Beach.
Yep. Well, that's the one. That's what I think of too. And you would take us there, like that's when you got better waves. So you take us over to Woodmont.
Yeah, right. That's it then. And I think waves, well, the waves were a little better over there. And of course, if the weather was right,
Yeah.
you could have some ice waves there too. Yeah, that's
And so when it now I think we talked about this one other time, but I think maybe talk a little bit about mother's affinity for Christmas, and just no matter
oh,
what, she would just make sure we had Christmas even when you probably shouldn't have.
well, Aunt Sandy called last night,
Uh-huh.
and she was talking, and she said something about how mom loved the fall.
Yeah.
And she was right. The fall was mom's time of year. And I was going to say to her, I said, yeah, well, September, Christmas started.
Yeah, we used to say when we came home from football practice, you know, the beginning, we knew the Christmas music would be on from Dot.
Would have the Christmas trees. And that was from the time we were married. I remember when I was, we were first married, we had our apartment, and I'd come home from school, and I had like a 2 hour break before I went to work at Sikorsky's. And that 2 hours, I come home to have something to eat, and mom would have Christmas music on. It would be September. So it was, and even then, I'd have presents for Leanne or Woody or whoever was around, and by the time, you all got around, it was a mammoth thing.
Yeah.
When you stop and think about it, the number of presents that were there. But and I'm glad now, but I used to kind of fight it, but I'm glad I didn't win because, mom was just all out for Christmas. You guys were going to have a good Christmas no matter what. And I think that was part of because when she was growing up, Christmas was just another drinking holiday.
Yeah.
I think she remembered when her mother was married to her real father. it was nice, and maybe that's what she was trying to duplicate. But after they got divorced, and she was, you know, I was around. It was, really not a pleasant holiday, I think, for her. Uh, so she was making up for it. So yeah, she loved Christmas. It was and decoration. You remember Christmas? Um, she had Christmas curtains.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she had special Christmas curtains. They were beautiful. They were very white and
Mhm.
Christmas on them, and she had made them herself.
Huh.
And we had them in the kitchen. I think I can't remember how many windows we had them on, but she had them, and she had made them herself. And actually before she passed away, we were out and she bought some material again. She wanted to make more. She wanted to make them again,
Oh, wow.
and uh, I had the material. And actually, one of the older ladies at church finally ended up making curtains for me out of it. They're not as nice as the one Mom had, but uh, the material wasn't as good. But it was, at least it was kind of carrying on the tradition. And then the choir boys.
Now, the choir boys, we all remember, you cut those out of plywood and painted them and had a little hand, where you put the light in, like they were holding a candle.
Well,
Is that correct?
you learn how to do things, and yeah. And I no wonder now when I even found time. But the first year, yeah, now how you used to make squares so you could make a small picture bigger.
Hmm.
You must have done that in art
Yeah,
classes.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I found a
Use
picture
the
of a choir.
projector and stuff.
Yeah, and I found a picture of choir boy, and I made it out of paper the first year,
Oh,
and then it worked out so well. The next year, I made them out of plywood, and somehow got candles, and they had their hand out and put a candle in each one of their hands. It worked out nice. I keep thinking I wish I could do it again, maybe one
yeah.
of these days before I
Those were iconic.
huh?
Those were iconic, the choir
Yeah.
boys.
Well, the thing is that they were different,
Yeah,
you know. Everybody, everybody could go out, and it wasn't something you're going to go out and buy.
yeah.
Mm.
And the other thing I remember too is that was kind of unique, and I don't know where you got it from, but was the stand to the Christmas tree, that white stand, that kind of
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like a
that
little
was
fence around the tree and stuff. That was
yeah,
pretty
right. Yeah,
sturdy.
no,
I think it may have had lights in it too.
yeah, it did. It originally had lights in it, and it was a big wooden thing, and that actually came from my mother had a boyfriend, a friend that he died before she met Carl, and that was his, and he had given it to my mother.
Oh,
My mother really didn't want it, so we ended up with
I
it.
thought it was kind of cool.
It was nice. It was different. And it was, you plug it in, you had lights all around it and vents, and you could put plenty of presents under it. That was for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And
And
you
so,
remember I brought home uh, from Puritan the fake fireplace.
oh yeah, I love that thing.
Yeah, I know it. You you forget that all these little things that added up to Christmas.
Well, it was pretty, and like I said, that was a buy-in that you and mom had for sure. Was,
Yeah.
and mom carried it on. I mean, when she was still alive and the kids were smaller, the Janine and I would struggle to make sure we had enough toys that outbeat Nana's box.
I remember the one year I came out there for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I brought presents with me. I don't remember why I came out there, but I was out there. Mom wasn't with me, but I'd come out for some reason. And it was Christmas time, and I remember bringing in there was just Thaddeus and Allie at the time. And they were putting piles of it. And they were measuring
Yeah.
it up, how many they were. To keep. So That was when you were still in Brigham City.
in Brigham,
was,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
you know, obviously one of the Christmas that my kids remember most is when we came back east and it snowed on Christmas Day. We went up to Woody's place and sled, and you guys, yeah, pulled out the stop. It's still one of the ones they talk about the most, that trip to, we spent that one Christmas with you guys back there.
Yeah, it worked out because it snowed,
Mhm.
and we did find a Christmas tree. Because I remember the things we waited till the last minute and could hardly find a Christmas tree. Found one finally. It wasn't a bad one. It was nice to have all those grandkids here. It was good.
Yeah, not like you have a lot of space. I mean, you guys got to squeeze them in back there and stuff.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's sometimes the fun of it, squeezing
Yeah.
them in.
And then mom, and I always remember the family movie shot of mom going off to work on Christmas Day
Yeah,
in the
Yeah.
Corvair.
yeah, and the Corvair, yeah, she was working at the telephone company, and the thing was that everybody had to work. Nobody got the day off, so they all had to work 6 hours or something. Yeah, and so she got up and did everything she did, and then and drove off to work in the Corvair. Yeah, it was a nice little car. Love that car.
Hey, we got a lot of memories in that car.
Yeah, they have. I own everybody in the Corvair is uh, one of those circus kind of cars. Like you got 8 people in it. Yeah,
Well, they don't make them like that anymore when they have the bench on the front seat and the back seat too.
yes, right. That's right. Yeah, you could put 3 across in the front and 3 across in the back. So you had 6.
You could probably fit 4 in the back. I think we probably squeezed in a
Yeah,
couple in
yeah.
the window well, because the well was pretty big in the back.
Yeah,
Of course, the
That's-
engine was in the back.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that was a kind of a
Mhm.
that car is iconic in
Yeah.
Schulte family history.
Having a car that runs was always an experience for us. So.
I always remember too, as a kid, I was always, I think might have been, around 72-ish in there, that you bought the first VW van.
Yeah,
But I remember you actually trying to fix the thing and having the book with the parts and, seeing that book out there. And I don't know, what part of the car you were working on, but
yeah, right.
trying to figure it
Me-
out
me and-
yourself, how to fix the thing.
Yeah, no, me and mechanics weren't very good either. That was it was funny with that because I don't know what was wrong with it, but I always had trouble with starting, in the wintertime.
Well, and it took forever to warm up. I mean, when we drive to church, you'd be frozen, and just about the time the heat would start working, we were getting off the exit on the parkway.
Yeah, right.
It just didn't warm up very fast.
Yeah, because you had an air-cooled engine, so you didn't have the heat that you do in the other cars. But it was because we had one older, the one that when we had when the guy, were you in the car when the guy came out and we lost the door off the van?
No, I wasn't in the car during that. At least I don't remember it.
Well, the thing is, I think it was Christopher's papers, and we were doing the papers, and we were going back and forth, and going by the redwood. It's early in the day, and some guy pulls out, and we had the door open,
Yep.
and he hooked the door, and the door flew right off.
Wow.
And he just pulled out in front of us and just hooked the door. When the kids could have been sitting on that side,
Yeah.
right? Weren't, but that was another experience with the automobiles that scary.
Well, and obviously, newspapers were delivering newspaper was a rite of passage for all
Yes.
of us.
Yep.
And getting up in the morning and, starting with station wagons, loading up station wagons with tons of papers and running. And that's why I realized I was colorblind. I think it might have been Linnea or Woody or somebody say, "Hey, the third red house on the right," or something. And I'm like, I throw it at a house that I thought was red, and they're like, "What are you doing, man?"
Yeah. Yeah. You and Jimmy both brown and green, couldn't tell the difference.
No, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was Go looking for it, because I remember that too. Go to the Brown House. What Brown House? There's no Brown House.
Yeah. Yeah, you just kind
That was
of always
crazy.
got them wrong. Couldn't get them straight. Make you crazy and stuff. But
And, it was you know, uh, did you get involved in building the tree house,
which one?
the one down by Mr. and Mrs. Davis's house, the two-story tree
Down in the
house?
down in the woods, you mean? The one in the woods?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't so involved in it. I took advantage of it. I remember, you know, at the classic story, I think Woody tells of falling through the door and having his foot grab on the chain link ladder that we grew, crawled up
No,
into the wood house, wood there.
the thing was that you guys are, Jimmy, the guys, built a second story
Right.
and put the whole
They
above
were lined up. Both of the doors were lined up.
lined up. So if you went through one, you went down to the bottom. And then I think that Jimmy went through and caught his arms luckily on it, so he didn't go all the way down. But it's crazy to think you had that, and then getting the wood to build it and those kind of things. Yeah, it's childhood stuff that you see like in the Christmas Story.
Right. And I always tell folks, if you take the Christmas Story and Sandlot and put them together, that's a pretty close depiction of our childhood and not too far off.
Yeah. Anyways, I always say.
Okay, I have another question for you.
Okay.
Okay, where did the boat come from that became the sandbox? Do you remember? Do you remember the little rowboat we had in the backyard, and you guys made it into a sandbox?
Yeah, I think it came from Uncle Ernie or somewhere. That and I think originally we were going to use it, but then it needed a lot of work, so we ended up making it into a sandbox.
It was iconic as a sandbox.
Yeah, I didn't even know you'd remember that. I had forgotten.
Oh yeah, because you put a lot of sand in it, we make a little pass and put water in it, and same old stuff. It was, but it was kind of towards the back between the two houses, quite close to the fence, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm thinking that for some reason it came from. I think it was when they were. I think what it was is that they used to be a rowboat rental place when they started doing the redevelopment, I think that place closed down and they had all these extra boats, and I think that's where we ended up picking it up from.
Because I mean, one time we had that and we had the pools and stuff, and you're playing wiffle ball. I mean, we didn't really spare much space in that yard.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how it all fit in there when you had it all, because we couldn't have had the three pools when we were, because at one time we had the big pool under the tree.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that because I remember maybe it was you, Father, that hung up on the branch and dropped into the tree.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Well, I remember when we tried to throw Uncle Lester into it, and he fought it. He almost broke the pool.
Yeah, well, Lester was a big, strong guy.
Yeah, he fell against the edge and knocked it in.
I remember that. I actually remember that event.
Yeah, and just, Lester didn't want to go in, so it wasn't worth the fight. And when you realized after a while that he was a big, strong guy, he wasn't going to make.
Yeah. But most of the time, I remember most of the pool being to the south of the house, right out the back door was where
Yeah, I mean,
most of the time.
Yeah, you could walk out there. I don't remember. Did we jump off the roof into the pool?
I don't know if we jumped off the roof to the pool, but I will tell you that I do remember getting the model spaceships,
Uh-huh.
with the GI Joes,
Yeah.
and you get the Apollo capsule,
Uh-huh.
and trying to make. We didn't realize that you needed to to have a parachute, and we would toss those things off the roof into the pool to simulate the thing, but then it would crack the thing because we weren't. We started figuring out, try to make some parachutes, but we'd go off that window to the to the roof right there on the south end of the house that was lower, and tossed the capsule off that with the GI Joe into the pool, redoing resimulating the Apollo landings in the water.
Yeah. And not realizing that it had a parachute on it when it came down.
Yeah, we weren't good on our engineering. We just figured you toss the thing and it crack. I said, what's happening on? And then we said, oh, I don't think we ever came up with a good parachute, but we tried.
Yeah. But there was a lot of things amazing that the thing is, and I think, my generation, your generation, the ingenuity
Yeah,
coming up with years, playing games that you make them up as you go along. You find something, a ball and a stick, and all of a sudden you got a game.
yeah. I mean, yeah. You have Chris, out, at what, the crack of dawn with the rubber ball against the steers.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And I remember learning math because we would, we'd have our own leagues, whatever it was, and did the standings. But we would kind of circumvent. It was weird because we'd have our own standings and we didn't realize we could just cheat in the game and make the standings work. So we'd put it, but then we realized, well, one way to offset being behind is like the Yankees would have twice as many games as the other teams. So that way we could catch them up on the standings.
Yeah.
When did you guys first? I always am intrigued with the relationship with Uncle Doug. And what was how did you get to know him? I mean, the guy did we split wood with him. He had the garage where he always took everybody's hype. I mean, and I tell folks, in fact, I remember when the Twin Towers went down and I spoke in a memorial service, told the story about, I think it was Jimmy and I, they took to the city, and him being, I think he was an engineer or either an architect, one of the two. Yeah. And we stood there and watched for like an hour while they were pouring the foundation to the Twin Towers.
His company had the engineering company that worked on it. Yeah, that was his company, and he took I know he took Woody down there, he took you down there.
Yeah, we watched. So he's probably writing all those trips off. He's probably on the clock when he did it.
Yeah, it may be, but it was always interesting with an Uncle Doug, because you look at things nowadays, and
oh my goodness,
how could you have an Uncle Doug, this old guy with all these little kids, hanging around with them, playing with them, or whatever it was. And he let you do whatever you wanted at his garage, and put your name on it, and all that. And it was, and but then what you find out, it was actually a tradition, because the Reidenbach boys, who were older than you, have gone through that with Uncle Doug too.
Well, he had multiple generations on his garage.
Yeah, right.
My favorite, you walk into the door with Uncle Doug's house, and he says, "Hey, let me hang it up," and he would hold it over to there and just drop it on the ground.
Is that right?
Yeah. Let me hang your coat up. Boop.
Yeah. But and I mean, your kids would get down there and hang around.
I mean, what time Chris would be there, like 4 a.m, sleeping on his front step so he can be the first one to go to the diner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a game. I think he finally probably had to put some kind of a rule down.
Yeah.
Till 6 or something. Yeah, I remember that too.
And he'd take you to the diner, the classic stories, he'd put a quarter in the machine right there at the stalls that most people, most of our kids don't even know what they are. And then you had to close your eyes and just hit 2 buttons to see what song came up.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And then, of course, it was what, 8 or 9 in the morning, you go over to Redwood and get a drink.
Yeah, right.
You guys wait here. I'm just going over here for a second.
Yeah, right. I know it.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up, when you think about the world we live in now.
That's right. Yeah, the world the way it was then, the way it is now, it was just so different. And that, I mean, like you say, you kids. I mean, I'm thinking about the classic story about Michael D. Geronimo.
Oh yeah.
That's I always say, to Scott, especially Chris too, but you look at the Sandlot and you look at Christmas Story, those events didn't all happen like they did.
Yeah,
They were all events, but you put them into sequence to make the story, you
yeah,
know? And I'm thinking, you get bitten by the dog, with Michael G. Geronimo with his pants, jumping off the roof of the school, all these things, the Olympics, whatever you want to do. You can make I mean, cover 1 year. You could put all that stuff in
yep,
and make a story out of it. All you
yep.
need is the what did Hitchcock, like the MacGuffin, something
Yeah,
to build around, like
the playwright, yeah, and stuff.
like the Red Rider rifle, that they
Yep,
have something to build it around, and that's just stories of kids growing up.
yep.
That's why you can relate to them. The whether it's Sandlot or Christmas Story. I mean, you can almost picture
Yeah, I mean,
your
when
life.
you talk about the Sandlot and folks, when the ball, they're doing the whole ball thing. I said, we would take a wiffle ball, you get electrical tape and you tape it and you try to make it survive, and then finally it die. And then what you do, you all started collecting bottles and go up to what was the store that Jimmy was always going to be the manager of,
JNS.
J&S, and you
Yeah.
turn your bottles in, you get another wiffle ball, and off we went again.
You good for another few days, a few weeks, or whatever it
Yeah,
lasts.
whatever, and you just made it, you made them last.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. You didn't just go out. I was thinking, I don't know. I got the wake up call when I was out there and we went to get Caleb a bat.
Oh,
About how expensive things are now. I got back to school and I'm looking at the girls playing softball. And they got their backpack. They got two baseball bats.
yeah.
They got their shoes. They got they got a helmet.
It's $1,500 if it's $1.
That's what I looked. I said,
Yeah.
they're
We did
walking
the same
around.
thing with Mary. And in fact, Caleb, I don't know, it was weird. His freshman year in college, we was playing college ball, and I asked her, I said, "Hey, do you need a bat?" And it was a wooden bat league they played in.
Oh, is that right? In college? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, this particular college league, not all of them,
Yeah.
but yeah, and so, he said, no, I think they'll provide. And then, he's up there for 1 week. Dad, I need a bat. I'm running, I got to run down this, store, get a, and it's so complex now. There's so many brands, and there's certain ones you just, you got to get. And it's crazy. And, the same thing, with Mary trying to buy her bats and stuff. It was nuts. The only good thing about with Caleb is, I shouldn't say the only good thing, but one good thing is I bought this inexpensive pair of wrestling shoes for him when he was a sophomore online, maybe $30, and he used them all 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, and he, wrestled a state championship with these knockoff wrestling shoes. The kid that he's wrestling probably had shoes that were worth 10 times as much.
Woody's complaint always had to run in plastic shoes.
Yeah.
Telling me I had to run in plastic shoes.
Well, I always tell the kids my senior year in football, I found my pair of shoes in the box of all the ones that everybody turned into the end of the year before.
Yeah, right.
That's where I got my pair, and I was just fine with them. They worked.
Yeah, I remember when I was in school, they provided everything.
Yeah.
You had to go through the box and pick out and I remember when Dick Downey had his own shoes, and he didn't even have the high cuts; he had low cuts. Wow, how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just the way
Crazy.
it was then. Like you say, not too much changed over those years.
Okay, well, that's been about an hour. We'll do some more. We just got to really just keep digging in, I think, into raising everybody, and then eventually we'll get to the grandparent years, the years after, those kind of those last 10 or 15 years Dot was alive and those kind of stuff.
It looked like a good time in Aruba. Looks like you had a good time.